The year was 2012, and the air in the audition hall was thick with a tension you could practically taste. A trembling 17-year-old stood center stage, his hands shaking as he gripped the microphone, unaware that he was about to face a choice that would haunt the next decade of his life. Most people remember the voice, that massive operatic boom that seemed impossible for a teenager to produce. But the real story started when the music stopped. Simon Cowell, the undisputed architect of the modern pop machine, leaned forward with a look that usually signals the birth of a global brand. He didn't just give a critique, he issued a cold, calculated ultimatum. Ditch the girl standing next to you, and I'll make you a legend. It was a classic industry divide and conquer tactic, designed to strip away an artist's support system to make them easier to control. The subtext was clear: loyalty was a liability, and fame had a price tag of one friendship. In that moment, the world expected Jonathan to take the bait. After all, a multi-million-pound contract was dangling right in front of him. But Jonathan's refusal wasn't just a no to a judge. It was the first shot fired in a war against a corporate machine that treats human beings like disposable assets. By choosing his partner over the fast track to solo stardom, he effectively placed a target on his back before his career had even begun.
The industry doesn't forget a public rejection, and as we look back from 2026, it becomes clear that the cooling-off period that followed wasn't an accident. It was a strategic move by the gatekeepers to show him exactly what happens when you prioritize your soul over their bottom line. But what they didn't realize was that Jonathan wasn't just another kid looking for a shortcut to the top. He was a boy with a gift who was already learning how to survive a pop star's nightmare. Winning a talent show is often seen as the ultimate goal, but in the dark underbelly of the music business, coming in second can feel like a slow-motion disaster. When a girl and her dancing dog took the crown instead of Jonathan, a heavy sinking sensation settled into his chest, a feeling that wouldn't lift for nearly 10 years. While the cameras captured a gracious loser, the reality behind the scenes was far more suffocating. Jonathan was immediately funneled into a label contract that felt less like a career path and more like a high-security cage. This is what insiders call the second-place curse. You are granted the fame, the face recognition, and the public expectations, but you are stripped of every ounce of creative agency. The labels don't see an artist, they see a secondary asset to be managed until the next season's winner arrives. Jonathan was quickly shuffled into the pop opera genre, a commercial middle ground that pleased absolutely no one.
He was being meticulously molded into a caricature, a mini Pavarotti gimmick that felt entirely hollow to the boy actually doing the singing. Every outfit, every song choice, and every interview was feted by handlers who wanted a product, not a person. By 2024, the pressure reached a fever pitch, and rumors began to swirl that he had walked away for good. People wondered if he had simply vanished, but the truth was that he was fighting an internal battle against the ghost of his 17-year-old self. The industry wanted him to stay frozen in time, a shy kid with a big voice, while he was screaming to evolve into a man with a message. This friction nearly led to a permanent silence, as the weight of being a label puppet became too heavy for even his massive voice to carry. Behind the curtain of the world's most prestigious stages, a battle with his own reflection was reaching a devastating breaking point. For years, the public conversation surrounding Jonathan Antoine was as much about his physical stature as it was about his high notes, and the relentless scrutiny took a toll that no young person is equipped to handle. During his long stints in America, the isolation of the touring life, combined with a culture that promotes fast, easy comfort, pushed him into a state he now describes as spiritually bankrupt. It wasn't just about the numbers on a scale, it was about a total loss of control over his own existence.
In a business that demands aesthetic perfection, Jonathan's eventual journey to losing over 5 stone, roughly 70 pounds, wasn't a vanity project for a magazine cover, it was a survival tactic. He began a grueling regime of walking 10,000 steps a day, but he wasn't doing it to fit into a designer suit. He was doing it to clear the brain fog that was threatening to drown his ability to create. However, as any survivor will tell you, shedding the weight doesn't automatically heal the mind. As the physical pounds dropped, his underlying anxieties didn't disappear. They became sharper, more defined, and harder to ignore. He had to learn how to live in a body that felt completely alien to him, all while the media continued to judge his progress like he was a science experiment. Recent speculations about his health often miss the deeper point. This wasn't a glow-up. This was a slow, painful reclamation of his humanity. After years of using his physical presence as a shield against the pressures of fame, he had to dismantle the shy, big kid persona to find the disciplined, focused man underneath. It was a process involving more setbacks than the public ever realized, proving that the hardest part of the journey wasn't losing the weight, it was finding the person who was left behind. In a revelation that sent shockwaves through his global fanbase between 2023 and 2025, Jonathan finally went public with a diagnosis that explained everything. He was on the autism spectrum.
For 27 years, he had lived in a world where the stage lights were too bright, the backstage noise was too loud, and the complex social cues of the music industry felt like a foreign language he had never been taught. Receiving this diagnosis wasn't a tragedy for him. It was a massive, life-altering relief. It finally recontextualized a lifetime of feeling broken or difficult. Suddenly, the moments where he retreated into total isolation after a performance weren't signs of being a diva. They were necessary recovery periods for a neurodivergent mind that had been sensory assaulted for hours. In the past, the media had been quick to label him as reclusive or hard to work with, but the truth was far more profound. He had been navigating a neurotypical industry with a mind that functioned on a completely different frequency, a feat of endurance that is exhausting beyond words. This diagnosis allowed him to finally stop apologizing for his existence. He began to understand his obsessive, near-religious dedication to music not as a quirk, but as a special interest that allowed him to achieve a level of technical mastery that most singers can only dream of. By 2026, Jonathan has become an accidental advocate for the neurodivergent community, proving that being on the spectrum isn't a barrier to a world-class career. It's just a different way of experiencing the vibrations of the music.
This new self-awareness has changed everything. The way he performs, the way he interacts with fans, and most importantly, the way he views his own future. He no longer feels the need to mask his personality to fit the narrow expectations of a record executive, choosing instead to live his truth out loud. While the traditional music industry was looking for Jonathan on the standard touring circuits, he was quietly building a digital empire from the ground up. In a tactical masterstroke that caught his former handlers off guard, Jonathan successfully pivoted into the high-stakes world of voice acting and AAA video game soundtracks. By 2026, his voice, once reserved for the Royal Albert Hall, can now be heard in some of the most successful gaming titles in the world. This move was purely strategic. It allows him to utilize his incredible vocal range and emotional depth without the sensory overload and physical exhaustion of a live global tour. He has constructed a state-of-the-art home studio that functions as an introvert's fortress, giving him 100% control over his environment, his schedule, and his output. He is no longer a singer for hire, waiting for a label's permission to release a track. He is a producer, an engineer, and a creator who understands the modern landscape of the creator economy.
He has effectively bypassed the traditional gatekeepers by using platforms like YouTube and specialized forums to connect directly with a new generation of listeners, many of whom have no idea he was ever on a reality show. This tactical retreat from the mainstream wasn't a failure or a sign of fading away. It was a deliberate escape from the corporate machine. He is no longer at the mercy of a marketing budget or an executive's whim. He is the label, the talent, and the CEO all rolled into one. As we look at the landscape of 2026, Jonathan Antoine stands as a blueprint for how to survive the talent show meat grinder. You take the initial burst of fame, you spend years mastering the technical craft, and then you disappear just long enough to come back as someone they can no longer control. He isn't a has-been. He's the first artist to actually escape the factory alive, proving that the best way to win the game is to stop playing by their rules and start writing your own. A new voice emerged in March 2026, and it sounds absolutely nothing like the clone the labels once demanded. Jonathan's latest independent work is the sound of a man who has finally fired his handlers and burned the old playbook. For years, he was told exactly what to sing, how to dress, and which high notes to hit to ensure maximum commercial appeal. But in this new era, the production is raw, the song choices are deeply personal, and the vocal delivery is completely unguarded.
He has moved away from the bombastic, overproduced arrangements of his youth towards a style that highlights the nuances of a mature, seasoned artist. This isn't just about opera anymore, it's about the art of the story. This new chapter reveals an artist who is finally comfortable with silence and subtlety. The industry's reaction has been predictably mixed. Some miss the powerhouse gimmick that was easy to sell, but the fans who have stuck by him since 2012 are finally seeing the real Jonathan. He's taking creative risks that he never would have dared under a major label, incorporating elements of contemporary classical and even ambient sounds that reflect his current headspace. This work serves as a declaration of independence, a middle finger to the manufactured sound, and a warm embrace to the community that supported him through his darkest, most silent years. He isn't chasing a #1 single or a viral moment anymore. He's chasing a legacy. The 2026 version of Jonathan Antoine is an artist who would rather sell 10 records that mean something than 10 million records that feel like a lie. He has reclaimed his voice, his body, and his story, proving that the big break was just a test of character. By refusing to compromise his health, his loyalty, or his truth, he has won a victory that no plastic trophy could ever represent.